the first to know Nsem-Pii TV.
The British Broadcasting Corporation, eternity can say BBC. Fidie baakwa omo enyabre interview most of prominent African politicians and other notable people within the African continent. Omo enya segment editie enuanum before ya omo kura leadership positions omo adwene omo nimdie ya omo de wo efa amamu sikasem totoye ene de aka ho. Yebeka ye ho kakra during the reign of former President John Dramani Mahama as the president of this republic. On a BBC grantee interview, any copy must have you taken bribe before? Yeah, the former president, Etoto Papa, so an Ketwa. Yeah, in fact, Mogu see in front of BBC cameras. This same BBC in Yabre and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia aye interview. Now the journalist or ye stand with respect to the kind of ideas, information, analysis with respect to governance. His Excellency the Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia out 2 days BBC journalists. Okasa about policies and programs of Nana Addo Akufo-Addo Abanya ono Vice President, the positive yields from these policies and programs. Ono ankasa as a vice president, initiatives are working and also take about 90 to 95% of it a repo solid resource. A big are transfer across the globe. Some initiatives ono ankasa undertake here, even countries from the Western world are finding it very difficult to initiate those policies. And some ahodo the Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, in fact, or they pim these BBC renowned journalists.
Reading.
What do you see as the greatest achievement?
Well, I think that government has done a lot, as we've said, and there are many achievements. But the greatest one, in my opinion, the free senior high school. I think if you look at what a nation needs, the nation needs human capital to develop. And we were losing so many people, so many kids were dropping out of the system because their parents could not afford, fees to take them to school. And that was a price Ghana would be paying later on, because if you look at it, you'd see that you will be paying that price for those kids dropping out as they may get into all sorts of deviant behavior, or they are not going to be able to reach their potential and get jobs and all of that. So we thought that this was a major issue facing the country, and the president had that vision, which he articulated in the 2016 manifesto, having gone around the whole country and said, we need to bring free senior high school education so that we will get a lot of people in school. And we've been able to increase enrollment by about 70%. Which is just remarkable. All these kids would most likely have been at home. And so today you're getting all of these, in school, 1.2 million children, getting an education, and their quality has not been compromised. The waxy results that just came out has shown the best performance since 2015, and we're very proud of that. And so I think that in terms of social interventions and for economic policy down the road, as you look at this impact, the impact of free SHS is not really fully going to be felt today. In another 10 to 15 years' time, this will be a whole new nation, a very educated nation. And so I believe that it is the biggest achievement because it was opposed very strongly by our opponents. The NDC came out guns blazing and said this will not stand. They advertised against it for over 40 adverts in the election campaign. They demonstrated against it. John Mahama said if he had 2 billion Ghana cedis, he would not spend it on free SHS. He would do it on something more profitable. They basically went to the Supreme Court. Ayariga went to the Supreme Court to stop its implementation. So notwithstanding all of this, to have that vision that it was doable. Some people thought it could only be done in 20 years. Where will we get the money to do it? All of these questions. But Nana Akufo-Addo had a clear vision. He knew where he wanted to take this country. And the free SHS is part of the transformation agenda. Of the transformation agenda, which we have been able to achieve. And I think it's a remarkable achievement. It's a legacy for this country. And I think I'm very proud of it. The president has shown that he had the vision, and it's really, he deserves a lot of credit for what has taken place. So yes, free SHS will be my number one top achievement for this government in the first term. Yes.
Interesting you should raise that, because rather than, say, social interventions, which, as you said, has been one of the hallmarks of the first Akufo-Addo government, you seem to be very much focused on economics. It, of course,
yes,
is your forte and your area of specialization.
Yes.
And you have stressed repeatedly the NPP record, as you put it, of economic competence and sound economic management. Now, the NDC, for its part, has been insistent on suggesting that the economic management has led to economic hardship for Ghanaians. What's your response to that accusation?
Well, I don't know where they're coming from. They don't have a leg to stand on that particular question of hardships. We came into office when Ghanaians were really under severe hardship because of the economic mismanagement of the NDC. You recall, there could be no more hardship than 4 years of doomsor that Ghanaians had to endure 4 years. Jobs lost, people died, businesses collapsed, because of doomsor. It's a serious occurrence that Ghanaians lived under. You had a situation where the National Health Insurance Scheme had reverted to cash and carry. That was real hardship, because people who were poor, who could not afford the cash to carry, were not given health care. The card wasn't being accepted. So, because the government could not pay the service providers, you had these huge arrears. And so there was real hardship. The ambulance service basically had collapsed. You had no working ambulance services, very few ambulances. And so if you look at the impact of there not being an ambulance service, that's a lot of suffering for people who need an ambulance. In fact, the new ambulances that have been provided have shown, and when you look at the data, the calls that have increased, means a lot of lives are being saved. Without of that, the hardships of the teacher trainees who got their allowances cancelled, and they were reliant. And a lot of these teacher trainees, in fact, they were having families that relied on these allowances. The allowances of the nursing trainees were also cancelled. Arabic instructors' allowances cancelled. You look at the recruitment, the job situation. We had so much unemployment under their regime. And that unemployment, we even had a graduates unemployed association, right? For the first time in our history. That unemployment, was the result of their government's inability to get the private sector going, and also to recruit into the public service, because there was a freeze on recruitment. So you would find nurses would finish for 4 years and they would be sitting at home after their training. Same with teachers and so on. And there was no recruitment. Agric extension officers, no recruitment. There was just so much unemployment in there, and that was hardships to people who could not find a job to do. Teachers were paid 3 months for 3 years work, right? The 3-month pay policy, right? So these were real hardships that people were enduring. Under the NDC. Doom stories over under the MPP. We've restored teacher training allowance. We've restored nursing training allowance. We've restored Arabic instructors allowance. We've rebuilt the National Ambulance Service. One constituency, one ambulance. We've rejuvenated the agricultural sector. Increased growth from about less than 3% to over 8%. Ghana is now exporting 19 different crops to our neighboring countries. We have moved up in terms of food security in the Global Food Security Index from a number 78 position in 2016 to 59 position now. So cocoa farmers are doing better. The living income differential, the access to fertilizer is much better. You have, as I said, one constituency, one ambulance. You are hiring people in the jobs. We've created close to over 2 million jobs that we have created across the chain. Planting for Food and Jobs, Nation Builders Call for graduates, 100,000. The teachers, over 90,000. The nursing and health personnel, over 90,000. Afforestation jobs. We have created a lot of jobs. NEIP, over 90,000 jobs, and so on. So when you talk about suffering, the National Health Insurance is working again. When you talk about suffering, for sure, we have reduced suffering. That's the point. We haven't eliminated suffering. I think that is always going to be a work in progress as you deal with the economy. You cannot say you have eliminated suffering. But compared to what we inherited from the NDC, we have reduced a lot of suffering. Free senior high school is saving parents 2.2 billion Ghana cedis. Now, that would have been money they would have had to pay. And a lot of suffering. A lot of mothers had to sell their precious possessions, and fathers had to look for money to just send the kid to school. A lot of girls that you would have seen doing Kaya today are going to school. That you're seeing. In fact, one of my friends said that maids are difficult to find in Accra these days because the kids are all going to school, and the parents have come and taken them and they're going to school. They were suffering before. The free SHS has reduced that suffering. So we are doing a lot of targeted things, expanded the school feeding program by 78%, LEAP program, expanded it by 53%. In just first term, so we are doing a lot that is reducing the suffering of our people. We have not eliminated it, but we are in a much, much better position. The economy is in a much, much better position to deliver better livelihoods. You've never seen a government, Nanaya, in this country that says free water for 9 months or free electricity for lifeline consumers for 9 months. It has never happened.
Well, but you raise a question there that I wanted to ask you, because this story of success and unquestionable upwards 2019, the year of return, and the high that brought, and the fantastic economic performance of 2019 was, of course, partly derailed by the advent of COVID, which, without question, has knocked all countries across the world for six. So do you not think that there is some justification in the sense that, as the NDC would put it, the trajectory that we took, which they see it as a high borrowing and high spending approach to get us to the point where we ended 2019, has been knocked off course by 2020? Well,
I think that what is clear, as you have said, Nanaya, is that COVID has really impacted adversely almost every economy in the world because of its impact on growth, its impact on government revenues, and so on. And Ghana has not been left out. We have also been impacted. And the Minister of Finance had to go back to Parliament to present a revised budget given the implications of COVID. Before COVID, we were looking at deficits of under 5%, given the fiscal rule that we had been operating under since 2017 coming into play. We really had brought down the deficits to under 5%, right? And that was a remarkable achievement all through to 2019. Of course, COVID presented a different case where we had to come in and protect lives and livelihoods, right? Whether it's Germany, whether it's the UK, whether it's America, even Angela Merkel said, we are not going to be looking at the statistics now. We're going to be looking at lives, right? So the president, very, very smartly said, right now, economic management is going to be focused on protecting lives and livelihoods. We want to save our people from COVID, right? And so the deficit, because revenues are falling, expenditures have to go up also to protect lives and livelihoods, PPEs, and when you ask people to stay home, they use more electricity. We want people to wash their hands, and we have to give incentives to businesses which were collapsing, and we have to give incentives to the health sector, professionals who are saving our lives. So when you look at all of that, it meant the expenditures had to go up, even in the face of declining revenues. But we knew that this was something we had to do to save the economy, because we knew how to manage the economy. We knew how to get this economy growing again, as the president said, but we didn't know how to bring a life back. So the focus in terms of the prioritization was on lives and livelihoods. So you'd see that the deficit in 2020, we're projecting about 11.4% or so of a deficit in 2020. And that is fine. We know that once we get back on course, back to the course of fiscal discipline, which we will, then we will get back. And currently you are seeing the latest Bank of Ghana monetary policy report tells you that the latest data on economic activity is showing a much quicker bounce back than we had initially scheduled, because that is showing an underlying resilience of the economy. And that underlying resilience is partly because of the measures that we put in place. We reduced interest rates during the COVID, and we had fiscal stimulus at the same time to help the businesses. And we've been able to manage the health side as well as manage the economic side. That balance has been kept, and we are looking forward to the future now.
Now, talking about looking forward to the future, obviously you are very hopeful that on December the 7th that the Ghanaian people will re-elect the New Patriotic Party.
Yes.
And the Akufo-Addo Bawumia ticket
Yes.
and return you to Jubilee House.
Yes.
Given all you have said about the changed environment, the need for a stimulus, how do you see the stimulus impacting in a Nana Akufo-Addo Bawumia Mark II government? What's going to be the impact on jobs, infrastructure, education?
Well, I think that these are critical areas. When you look at, by the grace of God, we win this election.